Hey guys, DMJ here, and this video was supposed to be about logs, which is location, obstacle, goal, but I felt it was kind of too simple. An adventure is basically a set of logs. Location, obstacle, goal. Players are here, they get through that, they get to the next section, and on and on and on. But I wanted to get to the big stuff. I wanted to get to the outline. I created this outline a couple years ago, and I'm going to include it in the description below so you can just download it. This really works well for adventure creation. But in upcoming videos, and I have a list of videos like a mile long, I just keep writing down ideas, so I'm going to have a ton of content. But I'm going to go through some of this stuff in future videos. And until that point, I'm sure you can just kind of figure it out yourself. But, because this is kind of the bread and butter of adventure making, is getting this outline put together. And we're also going to talk about the rule of three, which works in just about every situation. So I'm going to try to make the video real fast and punchy. I don't want a lot of extra talking. I want to just kind of stick to the point here, and we got to get through these 12 steps. So we'll start off with the world primer. Number one, world primer, details of the world in general. Write down 3 sentences, again, the rule of 3. Write down 3 sentences describing your world for the players. And you don't have to do this at the beginning of every adventure, just only where it applies. So if you're at your first adventure, I usually start off telling my players that they are in my world, which is called Zexia. They are in the largest kingdom, which is called Guardhome, and they're in the capital city, which is called Badgeport. And I just give a couple little descriptions of Badgeport, 3 at the most, again. Let's move to number 2, adventure overview. Lore, tone, and conflicts. This is stuff that's going on in the real world. This is bigger than the players. Something happened with the crops this year, and everybody isn't getting as much food as normal. They're hungry. They're maybe even starving. There's a war going on between the dwarves and the elves. Big things going on in the world that may play into the campaign. Once you set the tone here, you can sort of see where the campaign, the big arc of the campaign could go if you want it to. The players could get involved in this war. The players could get involved in figuring out the food situation. These adventures could be based around the food situation. So you're just getting a big idea. Perhaps your campaign and your adventures has nothing to do with these bigger things in the world. It's completely up to you. Let's move on to number 3, locations. You're going to have to figure out your locations. As I said, using my example, location would be Guardhome, the largest kingdom in this continent of Zexia. Duranus, that's where the war between the dwarves and the elves is going on. So you're just going to come up with a couple locations in your little area where the players are going to get started. Next, let's move on to number 4, which is maps. You're going to have some maps drawn out. You can plunder them off the internet, and what's really fun to do for a campaign is have a big map on the wall where you can track the players, and everybody, as they're sitting at the table, kind of looks up and can see, hey, here we are, and we're headed here. Just a little bit. Anything a little extra like that is fun for the players to interact with. Next, let's go to number 5, which is NPCs. We will get to that a little bit more later, and everything doesn't have to be in this exact order. You can use these steps in different orders if you feel more comfortable. But sometimes you'll come up with an NPC that you're like, I've got to have this in my game. Okay, and we'll talk about fleshing them out, but you can say, here's this NPC, and here's the patron, and here's this. You can lay out. What I like to do too is I have the old Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition cards, the trading cards, and it's all full of it's all full of characters, right? You're just going for the look, the idea, the feel of it, and then you can lay out. You could do it randomly. Just lay out the cards. And then say, okay, these are the NPCs that are going to be in this part of the adventure, in this part of the campaign. And then you flesh them out from there. The Dungeon Master's book from 5e, has a big section on how to do this. But again, we'll talk more about those here in a little bit. Next, monsters. Again, it's kind of the same thing. You can figure out the monsters later if you want. But sometimes you say, I have to have a mana core. You know, the players are going through this sort of Badlands, and I want a mana core there. So figure out what monsters you're going to be working with. Pick 3. Again, rule of 3. Pick 3 NPCs, pick 3 monsters, and go from there. You can always add more. Next, let's move on to quest. Quest is kind of back up to NPCs because you have your quest giver, the clergy, rival, faction, guild, authorities, lord, politician, friend, etc. Who's going to give the quest? How are they going to receive the quest? Next is quest type. What are they going to be doing? Let me say this too, the most important part about each of these steps. Let's talk about quest giver and quest type, just because that's where we're at. You can find an endless amount of PDFs for free online. There is, I can't think of the specific name right now, but you could Google it and just write Dungeons and Dragons 100 things. And there is an entire like Facebook and website of this guy that makes 100 of everything. Here's 100 NPCs. Here's 100 locations. Here's 100 of this, 100 of that. That's all you need. You just download them and keep them in a folder. I'm going to show you guys my adventure creation folder here pretty soon. And it is just packed, and everything is labeled and organized into folders. If I need it, I'm doing a city adventure, click the city adventure folder, and there's 100 PDFs there broken down into buildings, locations in the city, sewers. I have everything lined up like that. I'm going to show you guys how to do that. But yeah, get online today, download hundreds of free PDFs. Quest type, you can find, just Google it. Next, let's go to complications and twists. This is things in the adventure that might, the players got lied to, etc. Again, find PDFs. There's a million complications and twists. I can't help you with that because it's going to be based on your adventure and what's going on there. Just as an example, like I said, a twist is the players were lied to. They get led off somewhere else. They're supposed to be over here. They get led this way into a trap. That's just the most simple way of putting that kind of twist. All right, next is motivations. What's everybody, again, why did the players get lied to? What's the motivation for that? We want to lead the players over here to a trap. That's the motivation. We want these players out of our business. The motivation is to lie to them. And, the motivation is to get them killed by leading them into a trap. Next, let's get on to one of the most important parts, and that's location. Again, rule of 3. Name. Come up with a name. You don't have to name every location, but the fantastic locations, you definitely, it's cooler to call a place this. Like, the Falls of Death, or the Waterfalls of Death, or whatever, just a name like that the players get interested immediately by the name of it. Description. Think of it like this. Again, the rule of 3. In this case, you're going to have 3 sights, 3 sounds, and 3 sensations. When you walk into the room, there's a fireplace, a table, and a barrel in the corner. There's your 3 sights. Sounds. The fireplace is making a crackling, like the wood is really old and it's burning, and it's popping and it's shooting up. You can also hear like some mice squeaking from somewhere. And then the sensation is it's pretty warm in here from the fire. Now, obviously, you don't give a robotic like I just did there. I'm just doing this, giving you guys examples from the list. I wouldn't give the description in that way that I just did. That's kind of monotone and robotic. But I'm just saying, I'm filling in the examples. And you don't have to use 3. You can use, 2 sights, no sounds, and 1 sensation, or whatever. Just don't go past 3 if possible. The game is about imagination. You want to let your players fill in the blanks themselves because everybody's going to see it differently. unless you're using miniatures. And even if you're using miniatures, that is just a stand-in. That's not the full description of the room. That's not the way you want it to feel. I only use miniatures for combat situations. We'll talk about that in another video. All right, next, in the location, buffs and hazards. This is some of the fun stuff. If you've got these mushrooms that players can eat and turn invisible, you got hazards. You could have traps at the location. You could change the mushrooms from being, helpful to these mushrooms. I've had them produce spores and the players fall asleep or whatever like that. But buffs and hazards, you definitely want to, again, PDFs online, Drive-Thru RPG. You can find tons of this stuff. All right, next, moving along, let's go to encounters. Okay, so I've got 8 things here. Roleplay, so what I do, I have 8 things. I will roll 3 or 4 times. You don't want it to be 3 every time. We're doing 3 things. Our players know that we're doing 3 things every time, because some things you want to play out longer, where you might only have 2 encounters. And when I say encounters, that doesn't just mean combat. You can see from the numbers up there. But an encounter is just basically something that the players interact with. You could have 2 things, you could have 4 things, whatever. Roll the 8-sided dice 3 times, and just to stick with the rule of 3, roll it 3 times, write it down, and we can go from there. But let's talk about these just very quickly. Role play, I will talk more about that down here. Combat, you know what that is. Down here's a combat template. We'll go into that. Number 3 is a skill challenge. I have reduced skill challenges to make them basically fun. And again, another video. Because that's worth a video. I'll talk about those. Next, Magical Divine Challenge. Those are fun. The last one that I had in my game, here's an example. There was a statue, and the cleric had to basically the equivalent of like a clerical ritual, right, on this thing. And if he succeeded, then a stone drawer opened up and he got a boon. He got, like, I can't remember what it was in the adventure. They got like a horn or something. But it's either a magical or divine challenge. So let the wizard or the cleric have some sort of challenge in the room that they can do. A lot of fun. Next, number 5 is puzzle. You can pick up my puzzle creation PDF in the description below. Sold over 1,000 copies, not one complaint. It basically helps you make really cool and fun puzzles. Number 6, trap, obstacle, hazard. These are things, you can use them along with number 2, with the combat, which makes it a lot tougher. But on its own, a complete encounter could be the trap or the obstacle or the hazard. Again, dig out PDFs. Number 7, individual challenge or harvest. These are class-related stuff. Individual challenge. Thief's got to pick the lock. Fighter's got to smash down the door. Fighter's got to use his strength to move something. The bard has to play an instrument in a certain tone to get the door to open. Or like there's some sort of instrument there, or you got to play it. Basically the character class has to they have to be what they are. They have to use their class to get past this challenge. And then I have /harvest there because I didn't want 9 things. I wanted 8 so I could roll a dice. Harvest is fun. Again, PDFs on Drive-Thru RPG, lots of different ones. I can talk about mine if you want to know about it. Leave it in the comment. It's fun for players to kill a monster and then harvest parts of it and be able to sell it and maybe find something inside the monster. There's quest hooks there. There's all sorts of stuff. Fun. It's fun stuff. And number 8, chase, which the chase from the 5e books is a disaster in my opinion. I've simplified that. So maybe in a video we'll do skill challenges and chase in one video. How I do it, simplified, fun, fast. I'll tell you this: it uses the Pathfinder chase cards, but I use them in a different way. So we're almost finished here. I'm not going to hold you guys up too much longer, but let's talk about number 10, and that's the combat template. So when you get combat up here, you can come to this creature description, rule of 3. Traps, obstacles, as I said, they can be used with combat. This is things in the room that can either buff or hurt the players while the battle is going on. That's a lot of fun. This can also be things that the player has to do. You can't harm the boss until you deactivate the pillars in the corner. You know, things like that. Number 3, battlefield changes. The floor starts to fall out. The ceiling starts to cave in. Things like that. Number 4, minion battles. These are battles where minions really were defined in 4th edition with 1 hit point creatures. And they're a lot of fun. Those battles are a lot of fun. They have 1 hit point, and you can pack a room, and the players just have to get through them. And the players can get their sense of victory. They just wiping these things out. Number 5, no solo battles. There's an exception to every rule, but it's a lot better when the players think they're fighting the big dude, the big boss guy, and then his minions pour into the room. You know, things like that. Okay, next let's go on to the role play from number 1 up here. Name, description, stats. Keep the stats super simple. Name, description, rule of 3. Personality traits of the NPC. This also goes back up to the NPCs. Are they going to lie or give you useful intel? Are they ally or enemy? Pretty simple stuff. And then finally, let's talk about number 12, fun stuff. Non-combat encounters and neat places along the road for the players to visit. You got to have some fantastic locations. There's actually a book from Mike Shea called Fantastic Locations. Great book. You might want to pick that up. Check it out. Fun activities. Things besides your usual, fun activities. Like, think about, I think it was Warcraft? I think it was Warcraft, where you could go fishing. It was one of those MMORPGs. But you could go fishing. The fun activities would be harvesting dead monsters. I have my hunting and fishing rules. Making the players run out of food or supplies, and then they've got to forage for it. That's fun little stuff. It can also be other little games that you can play in-game. Number 3, cool places to rest. Rest is, it's part of the game. Instead of just saying, okay, everybody sleeps, the players got to find a cool spot, a safe spot. It's up to the DM if it's considered safe. If it's not safe, they're not going to get their hit points back. I play old school, so you only get D3 hit points back when you rest. So it's crucial that they find a good, safe spot, but you could also make it cool. Maybe they run into some NPCs, some fairies, or some whatever, and just, spice it up a little bit. This is going to help you create some really awesome adventures. Keep it simple, fast, thematic. It's got to keep flowing. Keep flowing, keep flowing, keep flowing. The next video is going to be about miniatures. What I use. Do I use Dwarven Forge? Do I use 2D tiles? What's the best way to keep the flow going? How to use them? I got like I said, I got a video list this long. So I'll be catching you guys in the next video. See ya.